Mentioned the money in the budget, the line item. I got that put in about 4 years ago, and the governor has now come on board. He actually put the extra $125,000 in the supplemental spending. One of my colleagues, the Appropriations Committee is the big budget committee in the Senate. There's only 9 of us. And a gentleman from Kansas City said he was going to cut that whole thing out, and I said, you go right ahead, it's going to cost you $60 million, I can guarantee you. So it stayed in, and we're able to talk that way. Two things that we're required to do in the state of Missouri as a legislative body is to pay the public debt and to fund public schools at 25% of general revenue. We're about 37.5 right now. And then there's a local effort involved in school funding, and if anybody has any specific questions about that, let me know. I'd love to sit down and talk with you a little bit. I'm going to kind of hit some high points. There were some good things that happened this session, but I'd like to tell everyone a lot of times what we don't do is the most important thing that we get done. In other words, there are times you don't want to pass much legislation. I've said for years if we would go back and remove 10 pieces of legislation per member of the Missouri legislature that's been passed over the last 10 years, we would be better off financially. We've got too much oversight. We've got, and of course, we as legislators, we want to pass stuff. I don't worry so much about it anymore. And this year, I honestly didn't care if any of my stuff passed. If you want to pass a piece of legislation, never get married to it. If you're married to it and you got to do it, it'll never happen. And so basically, as far as anybody in that building knows, I don't care about any of the stuff I file. I do, but they'll never know it. And Jared's good at telling people, my boss don't care about anything. And so they don't take me real serious. And I think we got, I don't know, 8 or 9 pieces of legislation passed this year. He's supposed to get that all together and let me know. Just because you pass legislation doesn't mean it becomes law, and sometimes it should. Split government. The governor is a Democrat. The majority in the Senate is Republican. The majority in the House is Republican. And it's not always a bad thing that you have split parties. We have to come together and agree on things a little bit. Now, the governor's been pretty good about not saying much until veto comes around. So right now, we can't tell you a whole lot of what we accomplished. We don't know that the governor is actually going to sign these budget bills. I think he won't sign some of them. When we did the consensus revenue estimates last year, the legislative body used 2.8% growth. The governor used 5.2. It's the first time that's been different for many, many years. And currently, our income tax collections year to date, which most of them should be in now, is down 13.5% below last year. Negative 13.5% growth on income tax. So if there's a fundamental difference between the governor's budget and ours of $300 million on what he used as a consensus revenue estimate. So we're already out a balance $300 million. And if we drop down overall growth prior to the income tax coming in, we were about a negative 0.5%. So there are some concerns. Hopefully, as summer comes on, things will pick up and we'll get things going.